This is the speed round. All right, we'll start with you, Zan. Military question. Is DARPA using AI for development of new military technology? And is there any examples you could share with us? Or top secret that you're willing to spill in front of the text?
Yeah, spill a few secrets, go to jail, but it'll be great.
This will be your last
If I was 22, I'd be in there.
Hello, Fort Meade, are you picking this up?
Yeah, so the answer is yes, and not just DARPA, but DARPA in support of a number of the national agencies that your tax dollars support, so thank you very much. So let me do the cybersecurity side with AI. When you start to use AI, you can do a thing called targeting. So I used to do offensive cyber. I was your national hacker with network warfare. The thing that took us the longest, you know how everybody says a cyber attack is really, really fast, and so you have to respond really, really fast? Yeah, it's really, really fast to do. It takes forever to build the targeting analysis to be able to go through the right kinds of computer systems and get to the right logic and then get to the whatever the infrastructure piece is. So if you want to spin up getting through that system to spin up this and then simultaneously affect the control system so that the lights go green for the scientist and he doesn't know they're spinning up, and at the same time make sure that you can undo that so it looks like it was a failure as you back out. Trust me, the targeting analysis to do all of those pieces takes forever. AI can do that in not forever. And so if you're going to leverage it from a targeting standpoint for cybersecurity, for a cyber attack, it's much faster. Now you can also leverage it to say, what are the vulnerabilities in the defense? But the attacker only has to get it right once, and the defenders.
Is that a secret? Like 10 minutes? Like what are you talking about?
Yeah, so to do something on the hypothetically the scale that I just described might have been like a year and a half.
Yeah.
And you're talking within a day or so. And the thing that takes longer now is to make sure it has all the data on let's say if you're going to do a power plant, what does the power plant look like? What are the utilities into the power plant? How much dependency is there on technology? So you have to feed that into the data, and that's the only thing that takes time.
All right.
But then it replies. The answer is yes, and in the same way for weapon systems, how to do the logistic support for weapon systems, how much water does it take on the ground before the Russian tires sink as they're going to the Ukraine?
I hate to do that. Next question.
It's really fun.
That made me feel less scared about the country, so thank you for that. Okay, all right, Toby. In the area of healthcare, we have huge risks when doctors use ChatGPT to diagnose their patients. Hopefully not in front of them. How do we as a board approach the opportunity that they may have the wrong data from ChatGPT? You know, a lot of questions came in on. Zan was talking about guardrails. You need guardrails.
Yeah.
How does the board approach
using it to diagnose them would be decisioning?
It's an even murkier problem because there's a percentage of doctors where ChatGPT will be better, right? And the fact that ChatGPT does something bonkers every once in a while, it's like
do you have a list of those
it's like caddies, right? I play golf. People get mad at the caddies when they do a bad read, and I go, dude, that guy does one bad read every 18. If you're by yourself, you're going to do 10 bad ones, right? So which is worse? So I think that's really problematic. The other scary version is. I talked to a scientist last weekend at a giant healthcare pharma conglomerate, and they're taking raw data out of clinical trials, telling ChatGPT what the clinical trial is, giving it the data, and go write the report. And he said, and the reports are great. So how do you catch that? And then the other side of it is bad actors, right? Anybody ever get a phone call saying a Nigerian prince has left you some money, those things don't work because they're bad. But guess what? They work. Phishing works more than anything else in hacking. There's a bunch of people in the dark web right now running things through ChatGPT, making that better and better and better.
They use the same script
and using your voice and finding your network of people. And I get an email from my chairman that says, hey, remember we did the golf thing last week? Here's a photo I want you to look at. It's really funny. And I click on it, and you know what steganography is, and Anna does because we talked about it. Hiding messages in pictures, and boom, they eat my computer.
The little pixels.
Wow. The other crazy dumb thing, really quickly, this is going to happen by by summer, and you'll go, oh, Toby told me about that. They use this to help them program, right? Like a co-pilot. Like, write me a snippet that does this in Python, and it writes the code, because it's seen so much of that, it knows how to do that. Some people are saying, not just write me a snippet, said, okay, here are all your resources in the cloud, write a program that investigates this, and then comes up with a question, and then writes a program to solve that, and then writes another program to solve that, and then give me the output. These things are going to go and eat up an entire cloud platform in the dark, because the junior person who used this and thought they were really smart didn't know, and it'll be like releasing a worm. And some big company's entire cloud platform will blow up because some kid with ChatGPT went, oh, you go do that.
So a lot of questions, that's excellent.
It's not excellent, it's really bad. Oh.
With boards, like the boards I'm on, we're predicting a 50% improvement in productivity in our programming. So
Yeah.
this generative AI makes things up like prose, anything it can write. It can write code, it can write poems, it can write songs, you can make a video. You can make
And you use it to advise.
They use content. So
That's fine.
it generates content. So content can be anything. So that's one ramification
Yeah, but
on the job.
it generated, the thing we haven't talked about it is, just like all other technology, have you noticed the person that built it poorly doesn't get blamed? Whoever bought it is the one that the litigation comes after and the regulators come after. So just translate the discussion we've just had to, and you are accountable in your company,
Let
not.
me just do a counterpoint. Has the liability chain even been established? So here I created a picture of the Pope in a puffy coat. So I made
That
the
was
prompt.
you.
I put the prompt in. So am I liable if there's something that goes wrong?
Yeah,
ChatGPT
and the answer is yes.
How do you know?
Well,
Has
no,
it been
so,
litigated?
so here's anyone
it
that
will
looks
be
at,
litigated. It will
so
be
EU is
litigated,
about to
yeah.
publish their first guidance. It's a little like GDPR in that all of the guardrails on how they apply it need to be looked at, and what is considered high priority, which they've defined and is kind of, stamped. But the one thing that has carried through is the person that is using it and taking action based on that information is who's held accountable. Same thing in Singapore, Japan, South Korea, as they've put out guidance on AI and policy. The one thing that is consistent is the developer is not at, and they should be, but they are not at the central point of litigation.
Is it in place now in the U.S. or is it coming?
No, it's coming, but in
Yeah.
all these other places, GDPR came before the U.S. woke up. So you've got in cybersecurity, they're talking about elements that's part of the NIST is elements of how you protect yourself and everything else. But from a standpoint of adoption, right now, the focus as we do adoption is not on the developer. And you just need to be aware of that. So it's a buyer beware. That doesn't mean don't buy it. It means make sure you understand where you're using it and advisory, not decisioning, and make sure you have the backstop of the second check. And that's the one that you use as your validation, because that's the one the regulators, the litigators, your reputation, your ability to talk from a reputation standpoint for consumers is going to be based on all this did was advise, so you opened your aperture in the realm of the possible.
So can I copyright the picture of the Pope with the puffy coat? Can I copyright it?
Yeah, so this is what's
Is it
interesting.
protected? Whose
There,
is it? Is it
so did everybody see? So Ann Newberger, part of the
If I took a
CyberStar,
picture
just said
of
we
that-
should do watermarking like the Getty does.
You-
Just imagine AI repeating the watermarking. I'm not sure, how anyone thought watermarking was going to work with AI, because it'll just create
So
it.
for your boards, understand the IP rights, the copyrights, anything with content, just make sure you're a lawyer. There's some litigation going through the courts now. I think people think they know how it's going to come out. GPT gets inspired by things. So I had it do the Pope in the coat in the style of Picasso. So did it
Nice.
steal, but you can't steal a style. Like you can write a jazz song because you've heard jazz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So somebody can't sue you for that. But if you take a riff, obviously, that's
Yeah.
something that you get in trouble
It
for.
copies
One
the
point I wanna
style
make,
and everything.
People keep asking
Yep.
about jobs. On the generative side, where it makes and produces content, each industry will be disrupted differently, and each function within that industry are like the early jobs that will change significantly. And so, for example, in your marketing group, the people that write the blog posts or that put marketing content, that write the emails to follow up. I was watching a demonstration of a personal sales coach that was a Zoom plugin. So I'm having a seminar with you about my products. You can either have an earpiece in one ear, and the AI is personally coaching you. And it's saying, hey, Jen, you have talked 3/4 of this. Maybe we should let the customer talk. Or you seemed a little sharp on that compared to, or your energy level is lacking, so perhaps some caffeine and carbohydrates would be helpful for you at this point. Or what happens in the Zoom call is there's a text message that comes up from the AI of, you did not do that demo, and right now would be an appropriate place. So each person gets an individual coach, and so what happens to those sales coaches? The media companies, this is a huge disruption. I think they're going to go first. So you see the screenwriters that are on strike now. So if your job is to produce content, ChatGPT can write a whole book. I'm not saying it's good or not, but you can keep iterating. It's a brainstorming partner. So I think what I would do as a board member you can't roll out AI across the whole company all at once at the same time. Isn't that the name of the movie? Everything all at once.
Everywhere
You can't
all
do
at
that.
once.
Won an
But
Oscar.
you have functions in your company, and you have to decide, is this one, what is the use case that makes most sense for this? And to Zan's point, is the way you find that out is do
Experiment.
some experimentation. So if you have the right culture of experimentation, and I would say with ChatGPT, the companies I'm with, they have walled it off, they call it a playground, and they've outlawed other people from using it, but they know everyone is still using it. And they're using that to come up with policies, how to make guardrails, and they're going to self-govern until these laws come in. And so it's really hard to make a ChatGPT policy for your company because it's different than the other companies. So through experimentation, I forgot to say one thing about your intern. There's this word called emergent, and it's a computer science word, and what it means is when this generative AI does something that no one expected. So I'll give you an example, because it'll just start showing up doing different things. This AI that came out, ChatGPT, it was trained to have all the answers in English, and it was rewarded when it was proper English and it sounded English native speaker. One day they said, why don't you just answer in Persian? And it had perfect Persian. All the developers were shocked because they hadn't done reinforcement learning and training on the different languages. So that's called emergent. When it just shows up with a new skill, you're like, whose house did you go to? Where did that come from? So you want to use a playground, figure out how you do it in your environment, come up with policies, and use that experimentation to decide what your guardrails are. And it also leads to, some people are going to be afraid of it. They're going to see this coming as a buzzsaw for their job. And what is your value proposition if you're going to
So your policy may have to change. You probably noticed in HR, certainly in the general counsel's office, the policy is always about what you can't do. It is really important in this time to say a policy that says, how can you do it? How do we want you to do this, and think about it, and as long as you stay along these paths, this is good, because then it's participative and all your employees or all your leadership is participating in doing it, as opposed to saying no, 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 no. So it's a different kind of policy consideration when you can leverage, when every person is able to leverage this, help them understand from a policy standpoint how to best leverage it, and where they're going to get in trouble if they leverage it a different way. And that's the negative side, but facilitating.
Two cautionary tales, right? So no amount of fantastic technology and putting a brilliant technology architect on your board will save you from bad strategy, right?
Yeah.
It just won't. I was at Motorola 15 years ago, best-selling phone ever until somebody made one of these. And I spent 4 hours with a whiteboard with one of my mentors, a big Harvard Business School professor, 6'9", 300 pounds, that big, has a building named after him, and he's not dead yet. Normally you have to die to get the building. And we sat with the whiteboard going, okay, let's do the HBR article on how Motorola fell off a cliff and pretty much died and got chopped up. And the entire thing boiled down to, if you have fantastic tech and you've worked really, really hard on that, and you have a really bad strategy in your biggest business unit, and you execute that bad strategy really well, it'll kill your company. And we tried to stretch it into an article, and we just couldn't get it. It was that, and he was a PhD computer scientist before he went to business school, and we went, oh yeah, strategy eats that. The other thing is technologists are mostly bricklayers, right? They are good at slapping bricks together and they build things. They don't spend a lot of time, because technology is a pretty new field. It's not like shipbuilding or building buildings. So a lot of them don't spend a lot of time with architects. And they build stuff, and then it falls over, and it breaks, and it gets hacked because they haven't spent time on the architecture side. So having
Doing
a
the system
technologist,
engineering.
having a technologist on the board who understands architecture, if you interview anybody for a board and go, what do you think about tech architecture? And you get a blank stare, just go, don't. Every big cyber problem, every big tech problem I've seen my entire life, the architecture was broken. Just broken. And then to make this even harder, I think McKinsey reported
Don't keep making it harder.
70% of CIOs are graded by their CEO as really not very good. I talked to a giant European FS company, hundreds of years old, a few months ago, and they referred to their CIO as a head of wet lettuce.
Oh, isn't
Yeah,
that,
and I'm like,
thought
and
that
it was
was
with a really thick British accent, and I go, so that's not good, right?
that was the
And
Prime
just,
Minister of Britain.
Well, it's an
Yeah,
entire career
yeah.
fair where we
Liz
rewarded
Truss, yeah.